back, and right now I'm going to make a special video. A video that I've been meaning to make for over a year now. I am lazy. Oh my god. Basically, in July of 2013, someone sent me a message on my fanfiction.net account, which I also I'm not very active on, by the way. Which kind of sucks. Of a fanfiction he wanted me to review for him. Okay, I don't think he knows about my YouTube stuff. I mean, because I'm a registered beta tester on fanfiction.net. Okay, and so I don't know if I told him I was gonna do it in this format, but I'm gonna do it in this format, and I'll send him the video on fanfiction.net. Okay. Yeah. Oh my god, it's been so fucking long. This story is a Sly Cooper and Uncharted crossover, which is called Uncharted Family Ties. Now, the story is called Family Ties. The first chapter, which is the only one out so far, is called Uncharted Family Ties. Okay, let's get this started, shall we? It's not too horribly long of a chapter, so hopefully this won't take too long. A lone jeep slowly made its way across a long, winding dirt road that curves around a lush forest, causing a trail of dust to float in its wake. Nathan Drake took a quick glance at the passenger's seat and saw that his precious cargo was still there. He sat in silence, his attention fixed on the road ahead. Only the loud humming of his vehicle prevented the lack of noise from deafening his ears. He picked up his iPhone and tapped it on. The time read 10 past 5, which meant he had a little under an hour to make it to his destination. Did they even have iPhones back in Nathan Drake's time? I'm pretty sure the Uncharted games take place long before we had stuff like that, although I could be wrong. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've played the Uncharted games. Haven't even beat any of them yet either, which I'm not too proud to admit. Plenty of time if he kept up his current pace. He was about to put his phone down when it vibrated, indicating an incoming call. Nate swore under his breath, already knowing who it was. He wasn't expecting them to notice he was gone so soon. He remembered telling himself he wasn't going to answer it, but he knew he had to. He owed them that much at least. He slid his thumb over the screen and switched it to the speaker before putting it in the cup holder beside his seat. He cleared his throat before answering. Sully. Funny, I was just about to call you, he said with a typical chipper ring to his voice. Kid, what the hell are you doing? Nate could hear the gruff voice of his older friend and mentor loud and clear. Oh, I thought I would just take a little joyride. You know, to clear my mind and sightsee. The countryside is quite lovely this time of year. You really ought to see it. Nate blinked in astonishment. Sometimes he surprised even himself how he could joke in such situations. Stop bullshitting me. Nate knew that despite Sully's harsh tone, he was more worried than angry. Why aren't you following the plan? Nate shifted nervously in his cramped seat. The bumpy dirt road didn't provide most of the conformable ride. I have to take care of this on my own. Seriously? Shit, Nate, the rendezvous is in less than an hour. You can't just ditch our asses like this. We had it all worked out. I just need you to back me up on this one, Nate said with a sigh. I'm sorry, kid, but you know I can't do that. Not this time. I know it wasn't necessarily your choice, but you fucked up when you took the job and screwed him over. He's going to be here to collect, and I have no idea what he'll do when he finds out his shit isn't here. Well, Nate said with a nervous chuckle, I'm sure if you will explain the situation to him, everything will be just fine. Heck, just tell him I'm borrowing his stuff for a few and that I'll bring it back once I'm done with it. I mean, come on, Sully. He seems like a pretty decent guy. A little strange and scuffy looking, sure, but a decent guy nonetheless. Listen to yourself, Nate. How can you say that? He's not even... I know, alright? Nate said with such force that it surprised even himself. He rubbed his calloused palm over his 5 o'clock shadow and thought for a moment. He chose his next words carefully. You know I've only got one chance to get this, right? Nate thought he could hear the sounds of another voice on the other end of the line. It was feminine and very familiar. You know I'm up for getting paid the big bucks as much as the next guy, but seriously, I have to go along with your wife. This may be about your family, but we're all in this one together, Nate. I know, and that's why I am afraid, Sully. I'm not going to put you or Elena at risk any more than I already have. If we really gave a damn about that, do you think we would have came along with you in the first place? He was about to reply when his Jeep started to slow, the engine sputtering its last ounce of life before it came to a stop completely. Nate tried the gas pedal several times, but found it did nothing. His ride wasn't going anywhere. What the hell? Nate thought. His eyes drifted over the fuel gauge. The pointer hovered over E. Shit, Nate screamed, slamming his fists on the steering wheel, causing its horn to sound off. A flock of crows that was in one of the towering elk trees that shaded the road scattered from the sound. Kid, say something. What happened? Sully's voice had the tone of a worried father. I'm fine, Nate replied, trying to keep his frustration from his voice. He shook his head. He was positive that he had over half a tank when he left, and now he knew he hadn't gone nearly the distance required to run out of fuel. He grabbed his phone from the cup holder and stepped outside. As soon as he did so, the pungent smell of gasoline invaded his nose. Taking a quick look around the car confirmed his suspicion that it wasn't just his bad luck that was screwing him over. There was a rather noticeable hole in the gas tank. How do you miss something like that? Which, to him, could only mean one thing. The cheeky bastard had expected him to make a run for it. Well, it looks like you won't have to worry about roadkill showing up, he said while holding the phone close to his face. He took his handgun from the back of his pants and made sure its clip was securely in its place. It was a Colt M1 911. It didn't have the most firepower, but it was accurate and reliable. Two things Nate appreciated most in a firearm. How do you figure that? Sully's voice said, though the phone through the phone speaker. I'm pretty sure he's tailing me. Looks like I'm being a dick right now and leaving you and Elena high and dry, but I'm asking you to let me do this alone. I can't let you guys take the fall for my stupid mistakes. I put you guys at risk too many times before, and I can't let you guys take the fall for my dumbass mistakes any longer. He opened his right hand and stared at the ring on his finger. Just do me a favor, will you? Tell Elena that I love her, alright? Damn it, Nate. Stop being such a stubborn fool. Why can't you just... Nate never heard Sully finish. When, with a look of shame, he cut the connection and headed back to the open door of his Jeep. His gaze drifted across to the passenger side and into its contents once again. He grappled the small satchel and carefully swung it around his shoulder before his gaze shifted to the other object that occupied the seat. It was a long staff that was made of a sturdy wood that he couldn't place. It ended in a strange golden hook like shape that looked like it could pass for some kind of prop from a low-budget pirate film. Nate grabbed it and headed toward the edge of the road. He looked at his watch and sighed, something he noted that he seemed to be doing a lot recently. He still had several miles before he reached Ella's estate, which meant he would be forced to cut through the woods surrounding the trail in order for him to make up the time he would lose traveling on foot. He looked ahead to the forest before him. It was getting dark, and there was likely not another soul for miles. In other words, it was a perfect place for an ambush, and it quickly occurred to Nate that it was no coincidence that his Jeep had run out of gas here. He knew he was walking into a setup, but he wouldn't back down, not after knowing what was at stake. Nate snickered at the absurdity of the situation, all alone in a creepy forest with a freak of nature on my ass, he said, muttering quietly to himself, as he often did. Nothing weird about that. Nothing weird about that at all. He slipped between two trees and hesitated and headed into the forest bush. He was careful not to jostle the precious object in his pack and noticed that despite its size and sturdy make, the curved artifact he was holding was surprisingly light. He stopped to take a quick look at the map and had folded up in his back pocket and determined his course. He took off in a slight jog and made his way west, keeping the sun ahead of him. The thing I've noticed so far in this fanfic is that there are quite a bit of grammar mistakes, which is one of the reasons why I'm stuttering a lot. So if you have time, I would recommend you go through and try to fix some of them. Generally speaking, like they're usually like punctuation mistakes and spelling mistakes and repeating certain words or phrases more than once when you don't need to, like in a row. I mean, there's nothing horrible, but it is worth mentioning though. That's one of the reasons why I'm stuttering a lot here. All right, the midsummer's crimson fireball rested low on the horizon, causing long shadows to stretch across the forest floor. After running for several minutes, Nate soon found that he was grateful for the shade they provided, though he couldn't tell if the sweat he wiped off his brow was from the heat wave that this part of the UK was from the heat wave. This part of the UK was currently expecting or knowing they was currently experiencing the hell? This part of the UK was currently experiencing or knowing that he was being followed. It makes no sense. He took another quick glance over his shoulder and had to remind himself that decades of getting in scrapes like these didn't make him paranoid, just cautious, which made the fact that he had no idea where his pursuer was all the more grueling. He made every effort to carefully scan the surrounding trees for anything that might give his stalker's position away, but every time he was sure he caught movement, only shadows filled his view. Well, guess those rumors weren't bullshit after all. He shook the thought and pressed on, his fast walk turning into a jog. He was starting to think that perhaps this was just a result of his reoccurring bad luck, and that he was simply overthinking things. He jumped over a protruding tree branch, however, and quickly changed his mind. Barely had time to cry out, "Oh crap!" when he realized his foot landed on a small hole, which could only be seen from the other side of the route. While the rest of his body wanted to move forward, his foot, caught it in the hole, stayed in place, causing him to go flying headfirst down the small hill that was conveniently in front of him. As he somersaulted out of control, Nate did his best to tuck the satchel and came near his chest with a death grip. It seemed like forever before he came crashing to a halt as the hilt leveled out. Fuck, that hurt, he thought, rubbing the back of his neck. Stumbling to his feet, he patted himself down and mentally checked his gear. Okay, creepy box, check. Cane, good, still here. Someone somehow the two treasures had managed to make it out of the tumble unscathed, which left him with only one more thing to check: his gun. Nate swore under his breath as he realized it had fallen out. He scrabbled around looking for his missing weapon. He was about about to just say hell with it and continue when a smooth, all too familiar voice made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Looking for this, pal? Nate slowly turned and looked up toward the source of the voice and knew getting to his destination just got much harder. Crouching on a tree branch several feet above, the inhuman shape of his stalker was silhouetted against the now dark orange sky. Nate had encountered several skilled in the use of making shadow cover. In fact, he often did it himself. But this guy, whatever he was, seemed to be able to blend into the very darkness itself. I gotta figure out how he does that, Nate thought. The only shapes Nate could clearly make out were a set of hazel-colored eyes and a smile that somehow seemed charming despite its inch-long canines. Okay. A long black shape slowly waved behind the dark figure, twisting and waving like a puff of coiling smoke. An arm raised from within the shadow's contour. In his hand was Nate's gun. Well, guess I won't be using that, Nate thought. He met the creature's gaze and fronted his best confident smirk. Yes, actually. Thanks for holding on to it for me. Now would you be so kind as to give it back? Well, I would. The shape and inhaling a sharp breath, but I don't think that would be such a good idea. The shadow said, throwing the firearm over his shoulder. Nate heard the distinct splashing sound of someone hitting the water and guessed his gun had landed in the drink. You see guns and I don't mix very well. It's kind of a cops and robbers thing. Really? So I'm guessing that you and my car didn't mix either. Yeah, sorry about that. I kind of had to find a way to stop you from running off, so I improvised. It's amazing what a simple rock can do. The shadowed form jumped off his perch, causing the branch he occupied to sway slightly. Though his descent brought him only a few feet away, Nate could help but notice he barely made a sound when his feet touched the floor. He crossed his arms and walked slightly to the left so that the sun was on his back, blocking the only way forward. Tell you what, he said, still displaying his toothy smile. Why don't you make this easy on yourself? Just give me what's mine, and we can call it a day. I go home happy, and you don't have to worry about me taking it off you. Nate shook his head. You're welcome to try, but I need those more than you right now, so I think I'll just hang on to them for the time being. That's funny, considering those, the creature said, pointing a gray finger at the satchel and cane Nate was holding had been in my family for generations. He flicked his large tail, a display that Nate guessed was a sign of annoyance. So I guess it would be wise to give back what's rightfully mine. Nate stood his ground and said nothing. He knew that he really didn't have the time to take him on, but knew there was also no way he could outrun him either. He slowly walked over to a nearby tree and tucked his small bag in a crevice. The creature's hazel-eyed gaze followed him like a predator waiting to strike. Well then we've got ourselves a problem now, don't we? Nate said, clenching his hands into fists. You ready to dance, roadkill? The creature laughed. Sure we do. I remember doing this before. Who won that fight again? I can't quite remember. Wow, what a dick, Nate thought, chuckling to himself. It's almost like I'm talking to myself. Yeah, well, it still didn't stop me from getting what I needed. Besides, it's different this time. I've got your toy, Nate said, indicating the hooked weapon he grabbed tightly. He used the leather strap attached to the object to sling it securely over his back. Whatever he did, he knew he couldn't let the fuzzy bastard have it back. The cane didn't make the coop. The cane doesn't make the Cooper, pal. I can take you on with or without it. Works for me. I've got a schedule to keep, and your trash talk is getting old. Nate couldn't help but find it ironic. Never in a million years he would have thought those words have come out of his mouth, but the freak in front of him didn't know when to shut up. In that case, as a Cooper and a gentleman, he took off his blue cape and made a bow to emphasize the point. I will make this quick. With that said, the creature launched himself at Nate. Even though he had faced him before, the creature's speed still surprised him. Nate barely had a chance to put his fists up in a fighting stance before his blue-clad opponent was upon him. As the creature struck out with a gray fist, Nate blocked the punch easily and was ready for his foe's blue-booted kick with another block. He noted that his opponent's attacks certainly had an inhuman grace to them, but it was clear to Nate that unarmed combat wasn't the creature's forte, since his strike seemed to lack an experienced form. Without his weapon, Nate knew he had an edge in a straight-up brawl. Pushing the boot aside with his palm, Nate went on the offensive with a set of his own punches. The first strike hit air as Nate's adversary easily maneuvered out of the way. After dodging his second punch, the creature crouched low, hugging the ground as he came up and around Nate's side, his palms reaching for the cane that was strapped to his back. Nate darted to the side, causing his causing his attacker's outstretched arms to narrowly miss. Without hesitating, the creature crouched low, once again escaping Nate's attempted countered attack. He came up once again, but instead of going for the cane, the creature swiped his hand upwards, fingers spread wide. Nate had just enough time to step aside to sidestep the blow, causing the creature's fingers to barely graze the side of his face. With the enemy's chest exposed, Nate saw his chance. He rammed his fist into the dark blue cloth of the creature's sweater, forcing him to let out a yelp of pain as the air was forced from his lungs. Not wanting to let a good opportunity go to waste, Nate swung hard and smashed his knuckles into the muzzle face of his attacker. The recoil forced the creature to stagger backwards, causing his blue pageboy hat to land on the forest floor behind him. Nice, he said, wiping a small trickle of blood of his now busted lip. He picked up his hat, dusted it off, and flipped it back between his pointed ears. You know how to throw a punch, I'll give you that much. Ah, so you do bleed red, Nate said, shaking the hand the hand he had used to deliver the right hook. Damn it, feels like I nearly broke my hand. The creature's face was sturdier than it looked. Hold on a sec here. Man. Longer than I thought it'd be. I'm not the only one. His opponent grinned widely. Less than a second later, Nate felt a sting of pain on the side of his face as blood trickled down his cheek. So that's why his gloves are missing, he thought. It's normally not my style, but a master thief should always know how to use what's on hand. The creature said as he fixed his claw-tipped finger that left the shallow gashes in Nate's cheek. I don't know, Nate. Nate's opponent taunted as he stroked the ashy gray fur of his chin. I think if those marks actually make your ugly mug more bearable to look at, don't you think? Stupid animal, Nathan muttered under his breath. Think this is ugly, Nathan said, pointing a thumb at his face. Nate carefully paced around the creature looking for an opening, but again found nothing. At least I don't have the circus calling for me, Nathan said with a cocky smile of his own. His adversary's eyes lit up. The circus? Really? You know, I've always fancied myself as quite the trapeze artist. I even got a name picked out. What do you think of the creature's eyes? Ears fell in disappointment as Nate cut him off. Now, I think you would be better off in the freak show. Yeah, right next to the bearded lady. His opponent's black lips curved up in a suave smile. "Well, I do have a certain effect on ladies," he said, raising his eyebrows in classic smooth guy fashion, a gesture that Nate found disturbingly human. But I'm wasting your time now, aren't I?" "I'm glad you noticed," Nate said as he went in for another attack. He tried everything he could think of, but his enemy's inhuman agility allowed him to bob and weave his way out of the way with ease. Unless he could find some way to pin him down, Nate doubted he would be lucky enough to land a solid hit again. Even so, he lashed out with a kick aimed at his opponent's gut. Using his momentum from a sidestepped kick, Nate propelled his fist forward into the strongest punch his muscles could manage, only to have his attacker narrowly evade his blow. Nathan winced as the creature dug his claws into the flesh of his outstretched arm and used it as leverage to plant the tips of his booted feet on Nate's shoulders. Nate grunted, expecting to have to bear the full weight of his adversary, but was surprised how he seemed to weigh almost nothing. Nothing that the creature somehow was able to shift his weight away from his heels. With the creature's tail clouding his field of vision, Nate suddenly realized what he was doing when he felt a tug on the weapon's strap that was slung over his chest. "Thank you very much," the bandit said as he gripped the hook-shaped handle that rose above Nate's head and flipped head over tail to the ground right behind him, or right behind. Nate had no choice but to topple over from the weight bearing down on his back. This time it was Nathan's turn to gasp for air as he was slammed chest first into the forest floor. He quickly rolled to his feet and reached behind him. He hoped to feel the smooth surface of the thief's signature weapon, but to his dismay, he had come up empty. "Crap," he mentally cursed. His bad luck had now screwed him over once again. "Look what I found," his foe taunted, expertly spinning around the object as if it was an extension of himself. Nate dusted his jeans off and rolled up his sleeves. Even with the creature's weapon back in hand, Nate was determined to give him hell. The creature's smile burned into Nate's determined gaze. "You know, the whole thing that would have been a lot easier if you have simply..." Nate never let his opponent finish. He lunged for the cane. The thief was caught off guard, but had enough sense to swing his cane in Nate's direction, who ducked under the first swipe and caught the follow-up overhead swipe. Ignoring the sting of the weapon hitting his palms, Nate wrapped his fingers around cane's pulse, pulse-shaped base. Now, with his hands locked with his foes, he staggered back and forth, stepping over stones and branches as the two of them fought to keep it. The two rivals faced each other forced each other into nearby trees as they tried to shake one another's grips from the object. Nate's blue-eyed gaze locked onto the creature's brown one. Each of their expressions were frozen in a deadpan glare. The creature's rapid panting echoed Nate's raspy breathing, telling him that the creature was likely just as exhausted as he was. Alright, I can see the end here. Almost done. I hope. Not that it's bad, it's just it's taking longer than I thought it would. Fighting the needle-like fatigue coursing through his body, Nate put his remaining strength into his legs. He knew that despite his antagonist's beast-like appearance, he had the strength advantage. He couldn't help but crack a smirk when the creature's determined snarl dropped to a look of surprise as Nate actually forced him to walk backwards. "Let go, damn it," Nate mumbled through clenched teeth, and immediately regretted letting those words escape his mouth. "Whatever you say, pal," his opponent hissed, a smile creeping on his gray lips. The creature realized something before sharply dragging the cane down at his ankle. Crouching low, the creature used his shoulder to ram into Nate's knees. "Shit," Nate mentally cursed as he felt himself there twice for some reason. Flipping toward the dirt-covered forest floor, he was experienced enough to tuck his head in his roll with the fall and enabling to quickly regain his footing. He spun around only to have a brown golden blur fill his gaze as the creature's cane struck him across the face with a force that betrayed his lithe frame. Frame. Nate's brain hardly had time to register pain before a second and third strike left him stumbling across the forest floor and into a nearby tree. He used the rough bark of the tree and to try and stand, but found it impossible to stay up thanks to the throbbing pain in his head and the pinpricks of light that invaded his vision. "Well, it looks like the score is 2 me, 0 you," the creature said, standing over Nate, who realized the creature had grabbed the box from his satchel while he was in his dazed state. It disgusted him knowing the creature was right. His fixation with reaching the estate had made him sloppy and cost him the fight. He knew that even if he somehow managed to clear his head of the splinting pain, he doubled his aching muscles. He doubted his aching muscles would allow him to find an opening again. Nate let out a long sigh and did the only other thing he could think of. He shifted his eyes to meet the creatures. "Please," he said between tired, gasping breaths. If I don't get those two Williams in time, someone will die." All sarcasm and humor had drained from his voice. The creature stopped, his wide grin dropping to a serious expression. "Sorry, pal, but you lost the chance to play that card when you bashed me up and had me and ripped me off. You really expect me to hand over my cane and the box after making me track you halfway down this bizarre world of yours?" Nate said nothing. He didn't have a response for that. He waited a few moments before answering again. The sternness of his voice held. "I swear I'm not bullshitting you." His foe's ears twitched. He placed his gray fingers over his temples and sighed. Another strangely human-like expression. "Look, I don't think you are, but I can't have you complicating things any more than you already have. If what you say is true, then me and my lady friend will make sure that won't happen when we give the collector you work for a visit. Besides," he said, his sly smile returned once more, "what kind of gentleman would I be if I didn't return the favor you so graciously bestowed upon me?" "Favor?" Nate said, confused. "What favor?" "A little R&R, the thief said as he raised his weapon over his head. "Sleep tight, pal." No, wait!" Nate yelled as he raised his arm to block the incoming strike he knew was coming, but it was already too late. His opponent's hook-shaped weapon struck his temples, causing Nate's vision to flicker in and out like a strobe light. The last thing Nathan Drake saw before he fell into the silent void of unconsciousness. Should be unconsciousness, not just unconscious there. Was a pair of dark blue boots trailed by a bushy ringtail headed in the direction of the estate. Whew. It was longer than I expected. Anyways. Overall, though, I very much enjoyed the story. Chapter 1 anyways. I'm not sure if it's going to be longer enough, but I mean, I assume so because it's not really a completed story, but aside from some grammar mistakes here and there and some duplicate sentences for some reason, and some punctuation mistakes here and there, it was actually pretty well written too. Yeah, sorry it took me over a year to do this. I'm really lazy. And yeah, so anyways, overall, hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.